I'm the kind of, okay, um, because, well, I'm here because of me. I'm here because decisions that I made, because of attitudes that I held or held. And and so here I am. I grew up, I didn't grow up with alcoholism, but I grew up at a time, now I feel like an old person, but and I am an old person, but I grew up at a time with a mother and father who were just really very straightforward. The most wonderful thing about them is that they just loved one another. That was the major relationship, the primary relationship in the family. And I'm one of 6 kids. We all understood that. But I grew up at a time where, nobody really asked us about emotions. Nobody really said, how are you feeling? Or how does that make you feel? They didn't care how you felt or or about your emotions particularly. I mean, my parents loved us, but it just wasn't the culture at the time where you invested that kind of energy into how your kids were feeling. I mean, when I was a kid, it wasn't a time where everybody got trophies. Nobody got trophies. You just did what you were supposed to do, and that was the payoff. I mean, that in and of itself was the payoff. Later on, when I had kids of my own, and there were a couple that got into trouble a lot, and the squeaky wheel gets the most oil. Some of the other kids would say, that doesn't seem fair. That doesn't seem fair that he gets all that attention. And here I am, following the rules. And I would always say to whichever kid was complaining at the time, virtue is its own reward. Virtue is its own reward. The payoff for doing what you believe is the right thing for you to do is simply that. That's the way I was raised. And it was really reinforced by over 16 years of an education that was delivered to me by nuns. But in my particular case, they were really lovely women. I mean, they were women who believed in the importance of doing for others, the importance of service, the importance of getting beyond yourself, getting outside of yourself. But what happened to me in that, and in Al-Anon, we say we look at the past without staring at it, through no one's fault. I developed what I believe is an addiction to approval. And so I was the kind of kid that, was always did, I thought, pretty much always, the right thing, because that, not really from any other sense than, you get approval that way. I mean, if you did what you were supposed to do, if your chores were done, if your grades were good, if you were kind to others, it just kind of set up for me this addiction to approval. And so I did, like in the essay that I just heard, I became dependent on your opinion of me. So if your opinion of me was high, my opinion of me was high. If your opinion of me was critical, then I could become very, very self-critical. I often say the words that I said to my husband when he was alive were nowhere near as cruel as the words that I found myself saying to me. So when I met my husband, he was a whole kind of a different cat. I mean, he didn't really care what you thought of him, it seemed to me. He didn't censor his speech like I did all the time. He didn't seem to have this dependence on approval. He was always doing his own thing. And at the time when I met him, he was in the Marine Corps, he was in flight school. And he was just really very, what I would say, sure of himself, cocky. And I saw so much potential in that I thought, this is really the guy for me. I mean, being in a relationship with somebody like that, as we say, I could see that he had what I needed, which was this, I thought, this self-assuredness, this groundedness, because I was aware, even, as a teenager and then as a young adult, that a lot of my actions and a lot of my behavior was dependent on other people's approval, of the society's approval, of my friends' approval, of parents' approval. And it just, for me, got me into a situation that, well, I just got in over my head. That's all I could say. My husband and I were married, not really pretty quickly, but the problem is that we were never it was always a long distance relationship. And so time to really look at the relationship, to talk about the relationship, to hash things out, never really occurred. I just assumed that once we were married, everything would be fine, that he would just straighten out his behavior, that I would learn to be a little more like him, stand on my feet a little bit more. And, that just never happened. And it never happened because of alcoholism. It never happened because I thought I was adjusting to marriage, and what I was trying to adjust to was alcoholism. And there really, I never found, up until I found Al-Anon, a healthy way to recover from the family disease of alcoholism. The other thing that I want to say, which just come up for me with a couple of women that I sponsor, when we were young and we got married, at 22, 23, some of us even younger, it's like our parents, patted us on the head and said, hey, good luck. I hope it all works out. See you at Christmas. I mean, they didn't seem, not my parents anyway, didn't seem to carry with them that sense of responsibility for things that would happen later on. And I was just talking to this woman that I sponsor. She said, my children are in their 20s and 30s. Why, when they struggle, do I continue to feel like somehow it's my fault? It's something that I've done. What didn't I give them? And I said to her, Martha, I know it for a fact, my mother and father never once did that thought enter their mind when things were falling apart for me. Did they ever think, gee, maybe we should have done this for her. Maybe we should have done that for her. And that I'm finding, for many of us that have kids who struggle, can be such, I call it quicksand. It can be such a dangerous spot to fall into, that thinking that, somehow I'm responsible now, not only for my life, but for the lives of others as well. And I think for me, emotional sobriety, or, that emotional rootedness comes when I am able to step aside from that. My sponsor often says, just imagine, go up 20,000 feet and then look down on the situation. We talk in Al-Anon a lot about pausing and about giving ourselves time and space and thought to notice what the trap that we're falling into. And for me, I know, and for others, it can be a trap, particularly when it comes to adult kids. One of my kids just 2 weeks ago sent me a picture of a bite plate case. And he texted me and said, grinding my teeth and drinking. Thanks a lot, Mom and Dad. Now I can look at that today and laugh about that. But there was a day when I would have looked at that and thought, oh my God, he's right. I've caused so much anxiety in his life, and this is my fault. And, as I get deeper and deeper into this program, and as I often say, Al-Anon, it's a spiritual program, and it's really, it's rooted in letting go. It's the practice. It's a spiritual practice of constantly letting go and not becoming attached to old ideas. So anyway, I'll just zip through the middle part here because it's not really relevant, I don't think, to anything that I want to say, but or that I think that I want to say. So I get married, and I'm married a very, very short time, 10 days to be exact. And I know that I'm over my head. I know that I have no chance of sorting through or fixing this thing, whatever this thing happened to be. All I know is that things will be, he'll just get, he'll adjust to me and I'll adjust to him. But honestly, it just didn't look like that was going to happen. It's funny. I've 4 sister-in-laws in AA. And the one sister-in-law said to me years ago, she said, whenever I go to a conference where it's AA and Al-Anon, I always go to listen to the Al-Anon lead. And I said to her, oh, because it's a family disease. She said, no, because it makes me so grateful that I drank. And, at first I didn't understand what she meant by that. But, I come to see that, the family disease of alcoholism, as I like to say, I used to work with this high school group and of kid. I was a teacher of high school, and we used to run this little group for kids who came from alcoholic homes. And whenever we'd say alcoholism is a disease like diabetes or cancer, this one student of mine, Katie, would say, "Oh, hate when you say that." And I said to her, "Well, why is that?" And she said, "Because I think it's much more like rabies." And I have never forgotten that, because the truth of the matter is, when alcoholism, the family disease, comes knocking at your door, everybody ends up foaming at the mouth. We all end up a little bit crazy there. So anyway, I did the best that I could for 12 and a half years and didn't really do a nice job. He went to Vietnam. I thought that break would help me figure things out. It never did. So he comes back, and I can just say things just devolve. But what was important for me, and this goes back to my addiction to approval, I would never have let you know that things were bad. Not in a million years. I was just putting on this wonderful facade that everything was great. Use the GI Bill to become a dentist, which was never on anybody's. I don't know how that happened. I thought he was going to be a large animal vet. That was the plan, but everything changed. Never met a dentist like this guy. But anyhow, but I act like, oh yeah, oh sure, yeah, that was going to happen. And because I just didn't want to let you know what I was living with. I didn't want to let you know because of this dependence on approval, this dependence on being right and looking good, which can be huge stumbling blocks to this day in my recovery. It just, it can just get me, it can just take me down on any given day if I'm not, how am I doing with time? If I'm not paying attention. Last week, I was at a meeting with a charity it's not really a charity, it's kind of this project that I'm involved in. And I had to go out to meet this woman because she's new, and she runs the retreat house where we do our work. And it turns out she's this retired social worker. So, and this is a new gig for her. So we're talking a little bit about that. And she said to me, yeah, I used to be a social worker at 2020. Well, now, for those of you that don't live in Cincinnati, 2020 refers to 2020 Auburn Avenue, and it's the juvenile detention center. There's an old one, and now there's a fairly new one. So there's 2 of them. So I said to her, oh, 2020, that's great. I said, the old one or the new one? She said, oh, the new one. She said, are you familiar with 2020? And I said, yeah, that a couple of my sons have been there. She said, oh, are they on staff? And I'm like, no, they were residents there. And I will tell you what struck me about it when I was driving home is years ago, I would no more have given out that information then flown to the moon. But, today, and really, it's kids. It's bad kids that'll do it to you. Just, they just will wear down your rough edges. They have kept me on my knees. But most importantly, my kids have left me with such a wonderful sense of humility. They really have, because it's very clear to me. There is absolutely, other than becoming a compassionate listener, there really isn't much that I can do for them. So my husband, after 15 and a half years of marriage, was killed. He, as an old Marine Corps pilot, he loved the danger, he loved the flying, had no interest in becoming a pilot with American Airlines or Delta Air. No, he, flew the jets, and that's what he liked. So he had built this experimental aircraft, and one day, actually over Memorial Day, some years ago, something went terribly wrong, and he crashed and died. And, at the time, I had just about 3 years of Al-Anon under my belt. But my situation was that now I'm left with these 7 kids under the age of 14. And already some of them at that young age had already started to get into a little bit of trouble. And the reason why that's important is this, how it all works out. I took them to this grief counselor because they were just all over the place. And I am not a very good disciplinarian. I say that as a high school teacher. But I don't know. My high school students just seem to like me, which is the only reason they behave for me, because I'm a lousy disciplinarian. I always let people off the hook. I'm like, oh, I know you didn't mean it. That's all right. I know you didn't realize that match would set her hair on fire. I'm sure it was an accident, blah, blah, blah. We have cicadas. I don't know if you have cicadas down in Tennessee, but that year when I must have been 87, when we had that bad bout of cicadas, and I'm teaching in a high school with no windows. With no air conditioning, so the windows are all open. And oh my God, you got a classroom full of 17 and 18-year-old boys who think there's nothing funnier than eating them in front of the girl. It's just whatever. Anyway, I'm off. So I take my kids as a grief counselor, and they were horrible. They're pinching each other. They're melting the crayons that he wanted them to draw their emotions. They're melting them on the radiator. They're just horrible. So he throws them out of the office, in with the poor receptionist. So I'm here looking at this guy. I'm 30 stupid years old with all these kids, these bad kids. And I say to him, I don't think I can raise these kids by myself. And he said, oh, you can't. You're understaffed. And that was I'm telling you, to this day, it was the greatest thing outside of a meeting that anybody has ever said to me in my life. You can't. And so I felt like I had this certificate that I could go out in the world with, saying, hey, I'm understaffed. I'm only doing the best I could. I'm only doing the best I can. It has been for me this wonderful release from a dependence on somebody else's opinion of me as a mother. At one point, one of these kids, I say to people, I've had 2 of my sons appear before me in a court of law in handcuffs and shackles. There's no inoculation for that kind of pain. But I never had to go through it. I never had to walk through that by myself because of the fellowship. Both Al-Anon and good souls in AA who were willing to share their story with me. It was great. It wasn't great, but it was so much easier. But at one court session, the judge, I think she was a referee actually, she looked at this kid's rap sheet, and he was only 17. She leaned over her desk and she said to me, "Can't you control your child?" And truly, with the greatest humility, I looked her in the eye and I said, "No." I wanted to say, "If I could, would we be here?" But no, the truth was, no, I can't. I mean, I can do the best that I can, but I can't. And I think that the reason that I keep talking about this is because as a single parent, but I don't even imagine you have to be single. As a parent, that message that we get over and over again is, if you do it right, your kids will turn out right. If you follow, if you check A, B, C, D, you'll bring forth into this world all these wonderful kids who never know trouble. That's never been my experience with my kids. But I'll tell you what Al-Anon has given me. Al-Anon it's helped me see the difference between empowering and enabling. And that difference is still important to me for my adult children. It's important for me and the women that I sponsor. And it's important for me in relationships. We say in Al-Anon, alcoholism is a disease of relationships, because it's, to be in right relationship. And I guess that's what you call emotional sobriety. To be in right relationship is critical. What I have found in my life is when my relationship with the God of my experience is right on, everything else seems to fall into place. Because when I've got that relationship down, I don't want to say I got it down, but when I have that intimate relationship with the God of my experience, when I'm paying attention to it, when I'm listening, when I'm giving it my time and energy, these other relationships, they just seem to fall into place. I don't know how else to say it. I say to people, Al-Anon is not my whole life, but it allows me to live a life that is whole. And that's important. And so, even today, I'm beginning to find that, when it comes to I just said to one of my daughters today, it is amazing to me, all these years later, how my kids have, I want to say, evolved. I mean, they are all, and even those whose drinking seems to me to be problematic, doesn't seem for them to, they don't see it as a problem. Well, one does, but he's just not interested in stopping right now. He just says, "I'm not done." So I'm like, well, if you're not done, you're not done. I mean, that's not my call. That's going to have to be your call. But to trust in the slow work of God, that for me is a critical piece of my emotional groundedness, to trust in the slow work of God, not only for me, but for those that I love. I'll tell you something. I was thinking, now, what are some of the things that are really important to me? Before I was thinking about talking tonight. Certainly Al-Anon is huge in my life. I mean, it's huge in my life. I've got 39 years. I've been in it longer than I've not been in it. But as you all know, attending meetings, that's just the beginning. I mean, that's just a beginning. The real work for me, recovery doesn't take place in the meeting. It's in the meeting where I receive the hope that recovery is possible. That's what I get. But the real work then is what I do outside of meeting. So something that's always been important to me is swimming. I mean, that's how I worked my way through school, through college. at the college pool. I mean, I taught swimming, I lifeguarded. In the summers, I taught swimming, I lifeguarded. So I've continued to keep up with my swimming. I'm not a fast swimmer, but I'm a steady swimmer. And when those kids were little and I was a single parent, I'd be arrested today. But I used to get up at 4:30, 4:45 in the morning and get to the local Y and just submerge myself underwater and just swim back and forth and back and forth in the quiet, in the quiet. And what I did then, and I still do today, is I count my laps by the steps. Admitted that I was powerless over that my life had become just that rhythm, that quiet, that reliance on it. I don't want to call it a reliance, but it is a practice of getting out of the craziness that my days could be. I mean, they just could be, because I, by then, had found a job teaching school. I had to get my kids into school. I mean, it was just boom. I mean, once I got back home, got those kids up, I mean, it was just like we all went 120 miles an hour. It just was the way that it was. But I'm telling you that because of this. So 2 weeks ago, I'm swimming. And I mean, you have to make a reservation now. I think the state of Ohio has just lifted it, but our Y, you still have to make a reservation. So it's kind of crazy, but nonetheless, I'm there at 6 a.m. to get in my lane, which I made a reservation for 48 hours earlier. You got to be quick. So I'm just swimming my regular laps, saying my little steps, paying attention, being quiet. And I noticed this woman, this very large woman, get in the lane next to me. And I've never seen her before. But I think to myself as I see her, isn't that great? Isn't that just great that this woman's getting up, at 5:30, she's getting to the pool a little after 6, she's swimming, she cares about her health. Isn't that just great? But what I also notice about her is she is out swimming me. She is beating me. And I'm thinking, how is this possible? How can she be swimming faster than me? Not that I'm competing, but I am. So I stop and I get to the side of the pool and I think, what the heck? And then I notice she has on flippers. And I'm like, flippers. But this is what that did for me. And this is why I'm bringing it up. Is because I notice her swimming with her flippers, she still has to do the work. She still has to do the arm, she still has to do the arm stroke. She still got to get the breathing down. But with the flippers, she's able to glide through that water a little more easily, a little more smoothly than the rest of us. And I thought about a couple of weeks ago, and I'm saying this tonight, what are those flippers in my life? What are those things that help me? I still have to do the work, but what are those things that help me glide through life so I'm not trapped by that addiction to approval, so that I'm not trapped by worried about what you think of me or what others think of me? And the things that really help me and continue to help me really are my life in Al-Anon, my life of service within Al-Anon and also outside of Al-Anon. Certainly prayer and meditation. Now that I'm retired, to be able to carve out of my day really quality time from quiet meditation. And that's when I get home from the swimming, quiet meditation and prayer. The prayer of St. Francis is a favorite of mine. When I taught high school, I taught in a Catholic high school, and we were really encouraged. I mean, we weren't forced, but we were certainly encouraged to begin every class with a prayer. And I switched back and forth between the prayer of St. Francis and the Serenity Prayer. And so that, that has a particular place in my heart. But that really, how do I want to say it? It's for women, I can't speak for men, but for a woman like myself, and for women, many women that I know, we were raised to believe that self-care was selfish, that self-care was self-centeredness, that self-care was self-absorption. You never put yourself first, you always put yourself last. Make sure that somebody else is okay before it's okay for you to be okay. Those are the kinds of traps that will absolutely derail any shot I've got at emotional sobriety. Absolutely. However, having said that, I do believe that doing for others, being of service is very, very important for me. Because when I think on a daily basis, hopefully on a daily basis, what is God's intention for me that day? Who is it that God intends me to be that day, this day? It seems like it always involves service. And I have to tell you, for somebody like me that's an extrovert, this shutdown, oh my God, pull my hair out. It has been very difficult for me, but I have learned a lot of good lessons. One of which is this: it seems to me, because I'm used to going 120 miles an hour, it seems to me that God's intention has been of late to slow down. And the service work I'm finding, because we're still limited to a degree, is far more about listening, far more about compassionate listening. I mean, in the morning, I will say to the God of my experience, what is your work for me today? And it's not usually, putting out a fire or saving somebody, who's drowning. What it turns out to be is that simple yet important offering to listen to someone, compassionate listening. It's, I hear it when people will say to me, well, I can't sponsor. I would have no idea what to say. It's not what sponsoring is about, honestly. I mean, for me, it's getting out of my own way, taking the time to listen. And often I really don't say much of anything except, oh, wow, how did that feel? Or, would you have made a different decision? Just asking questions. So let's see, what else do I want to say here? I used to be, just all in the middle, politics, not in my meetings, of course, it's an outside issue, but, just such a big mouth, blah, 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 blah. That's something else I found is really just an energy sapper for me. I don't have to be right. I know what I think. But if you have a different opinion, hey, I find that my brothers and sisters who are all on a different political page than I am, they just love to get me going. And, I have found in the last year, just not willing to do that anymore. Just not willing to take that bait. Instead, what I have learned to do, which is far more helpful to me in my serenity, is just simply to say, yeah, I think I hear you. I've heard that perspective before. And that's, and then I let it go. I just have to let it go. And then on my own, do no harm. I mean, the old Hippocratic oath, do no harm. Let's see. Oh, no. I mean, I just think I just think a life that's not, I just think a life that doesn't include some examination is not a life for me that would be worth living. Just occurs to me, and I think that I hear that reflected in that essay to a certain degree, that it's important to, to pay attention so that I don't slip back into old behaviors and old ways of thinking. But certainly, I don't do it perfectly every day. But there's that old adage, don't let the perfect get in the way of the good. And so, I try to stay close to those practices, those spiritual practices, particularly that seem to keep me on a path that I believe is the right path for me. And I think more and more, um, it does not particularly matter to me like it once did what you think of that. It just really doesn't. It's it's really none of my business what you think of that, and I don't want to make it my business. You know, I have my hands full just trying to live life the way I believe the God of my understanding invites me, challenges me, and intends me to live. So honestly, Sam, that's really about all that I have. I hope that's enough for you.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you couldn't have been any more of the right person to give that talk. And I mean, holy shit, 7 kids by yourself. That's like, I mean, you do deserve a medal. If you haven't got a trophy or a medal for that, I don't know.
Oh no.
Oh yeah, you
Just
need
a
a
lot of
trophy.
citations.
Yeah, that's crazy. What do you do with yourself? What do you do when the last one what do you do when the last one moved out? I mean, like,
when the last one moved out, I married a guy who I've known since I've been 18 years old. And I always say he was a bachelor. He'd never been married before, didn't have any kids. It's what I call a double winner. But what's made it really so nice is that he also just celebrated 30 years in AA. And so it really has been a very seamless, I mean that. It's been a really seamless relationship. It's to be married to be married to somebody that's been a dear friend of yours for most of your life. It really worked out well. So that's what I did. When that last one graduated from college, I retired from full-time teaching, got married, and really have just enjoyed life as best I can.
play golf.
Certainly
and
blips in the road, but again,
Yeah.
I've got a lot of flippers in my life.
Yeah, I got a lot of flippers too, but I think that you really nailed it with the service is one of my main flippers. It's what's always pushed me through. Like, the dependence on God is huge, and it's always dependence on God. But one of the things that happens for me sometimes is I kind of lose my conscious awareness of the presence of God a little bit. And it
Right.
always gets reconnected with service in some kind of way. Like,
Yeah.
sponsorship. Like a lot of times when I'm really just, it's not that I think that God's left me. I've just got too much shit in my head to really feel that connection to that presence. Now I know now today, I don't have to feel, me being connected to God is not contingent upon me feeling or thinking that he's there. I know that that's not a requirement for him to be working and moving and being close in my life. But it does help when you really feel that connection, that connective dependence, and service always does that for me. Like, it's amazing that the things that come up, the answers that I get from prayer in sponsorship.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think for sometimes what I hear that is a little disconcerting for me is because I think it can be dangerous is when I'll hear people say, well, I really don't want to, I really just don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. And, if people are asking me, it's really not always a question what I want to do. It's a question more so of where I can be of service. Not every service opportunity is a fit. And the other piece is, I think, Sam, is that I also believe as I'm getting older, that it's important sometimes to leave space for new people. So one time I was speaking somewhere, and afterwards this woman came up I was like up in Maine, and this woman came up to me and she said, and it was an AA conference primarily. I think I was the only Al-Anon speaker. Anyway, this woman came up to me afterwards in the parking lot and she said, I've heard every one of those speakers at least 3 times. Why can't they find someone new? And I said to her, well, I live in Ohio. You'll have to talk to your committee people. And she said, haven't they heard of rotation of service? And I remember her saying that. And what stayed with me is just that, because for many of us in Al-Anon, we're hands up people. Oh, I'll do that, or I can do that, or I'll get to that. And it's important to allow others that opportunity to be of service. It doesn't always have to be those of us that have been doing it for a long time. It's important to leave space for others. So there's, again, I just, there it is again.
Yeah, for me, like, that I totally get that. And it's funny how a lot of people in Al-Anon, you'll see a lot more of people signing up for service positions in the group and be overwhelmed with all kind of different things like that. But there's not as much sponsorship. For me, when I was saying, like, when I say service, I was thinking what's always made me feel really connected is I took a meeting to the jail once a week for a long time, during a really tough time in my life. I do one to a halfway house, there's just different things like that. And I sponsor several men. That's where I really get connected. And a lot of those prayers get answered for me, and also you were talking about in your meditation, you were talking about in your meditation, asking God who he wants you to be for that day, and really reflecting on that and how you can be a more compassionate listener, how you can show up for the people in your life today. It might be a different role today than it is tomorrow, right?
Yeah, right.
That was really cool. Well, so are you familiar with the way that we do this? Is usually you pick on two people. You can look through this Hollywood Square thing and say, hey, you pick two people, and then we'll just open it up for anyone.
So you just want me to pick any two people that I find?
Yeah. Do you know anybody on here? You probably know a couple people. I know Tom and Juanita were on here.
But I was thinking about asking Eileen from Michigan.
Oh yeah,
Eileen, I don't like that face.
Did she unmute herself, or is she still there?
Now she's muted.
Oh, Eileen, you gotta unmute yourself from Port Huron. Yeah,
There
There you go.
There you
go.
go.
Sure.
Okay, am I good?
You're good.
Yes.
Okay.
Great to see
Kathy,
you.
I was thrilled when I realized who you were because my brother sent me one of your CDs years ago. And it just really meant so much to me to hear another person who had used program to work through parenting issues and this overdeveloped sense of responsibility for our kids. And just hearing you talking about it today, I really needed that today. This was absolutely perfect timing. I still struggle on a very regular basis, wondering what I could have done differently. And, and coming from a very, big Catholic family and being the oldest sister, I brought a lot of that sense of being responsible for everybody else. And so the other thing that you really said that spoke to me was that a lack of self-care will derail your recovery faster than anything. And I really related to what you were saying about growing up and being told that thinking of ourselves and, asking, what do I need? What is the right thing for me? It was selfish, and selfishness was a sin. So, you didn't even want to go there. Right. But looking at just how this program has helped me to allow myself to be part of the equation. When I was doing my fourth step, my first fourth step, and I heard someone say, you need to remember to put yourself on that list. Or I'm sorry, when I was looking at my eighth step and making amends and not forgetting to put myself on that list, and how important that was to realize that had to be part of the conversation for me, or I wasn't going to be able to actually come to a place of wholeness. I think that was the word that you used. So yeah, what you shared today, I'm like I said, I'm thrilled because your story had spoken to my heart years ago. And I'm just thrilled to get to listen to you again. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Eileen. All right. What about, I don't know. Well, what about Tom in Rhode Island? My favorite state.
Oh yeah, Tom.
Hey, that was a surprise. My name is Tom and I'm an alcoholic.
Hi, Tom.
I messaged Sam when the meeting started because he made a comment about the FOTS workshops, including Al-Anon. And for me, the local roundup is in Syracuse, New York. I used to live in Rome, New York. Anyways, so that always involves AA, Al-Anon, and Alateen. And so I always make a point of going to listen to the Al-Anon speakers as much as possible, and the Alateen speakers. And one kickoff, which would be a Friday, I was able to make it over for the start of the roundup. So I was there for the kickoff of the Al-Anon, the AA, and then I went over with the Alateen kids, and they were kind of kicking off in a separate room with the kids all sitting around the perimeter of the room with their sponsors or whatever they call them in Alateen, the adults. And so they kind of just conducted a meeting, so to speak. And so what they did was they went around the room and they just had each kid introduce themselves and then say a little bit about their story. And I'm sitting there and the kids introduce themselves and they start talking about their life as it is with an alcoholic parent in the home. And it was the first time in my life that I heard a teenager tell my story.
Mm.
And it was absolutely, it took my breath away. I'd heard, alcoholics, tell my story, right? We all have that story in AA, sometimes it's in the big book, something we read from the big book, or, again, a speaker tape, or, one of these conventions. In this particular case, it was a kid under the age of probably under 16. And when they introduced themselves and they talked about the way their life was in their home at that point in their life, they were telling my story. It was very, very powerful. So forever grateful to Alateen for that experience and for what they are able to provide kids that are in a home where there's a alcoholic or alcoholics. Forever grateful for Al-Anon because you've imparted in me an understanding. I both had lived in a home with an alcoholic and also obviously subjecting my family to the same thing, and of course to Alcoholics Anonymous. And then that one thing that you said about your mother and father patting you on the head and when you got married and say you're on your own, or have fun, or see you on Christmas. I've never had any problem detaching from the actions of my children and my kids, because I'm not responsible. They're adults. They're going to have to. My friend's mother, who was German, used to say, "Shat your bed, you lie in it." So I kind of follow that mantra as an adult parent myself. So very good talk tonight. Thank you for calling on me, and Sam, thank you.
Thanks,
Thank
Tom.
you, man. Thank you. It's funny, Kathy, is that I was noticing that Mary Thayer often talks about taking off our mask, and I remember a lot of times, especially in front of certain crowds, I don't ever want to say this, but I've been like a closet Al-Anon forever. I heard an AA guy say a long time ago a guy that I really respect say, you know, we have all these guys that go across the halls and blah, 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 blah. And what they really need to do is work the steps out of the big book and and I do work the steps out of the big book. And I felt, oh yeah, you got to do that. So I felt really kind of guilty and ashamed about that, just because I took somebody else's idea of what I thought they would think of me with that. And I'll tell you, when I went there, it was Al-Anon put me back together when I was going through a second divorce at 32 with 10 years sober, 12 years sober. My second divorce to an alcoholic, and I felt like a fraud. And I went in that room and I go, I'm not sure if I really belong here, but both my parents are alcoholics. I'm married to alcoholics. All my friends are alcoholics, and and I'm in a relationship right now where I'm going through a divorce with one alcoholic with another alcoholic. So, and the truth of the matter was, that rocks, those people saved my life, and it is a family disease, and it's all over me. And quite often kids who grow up in alcoholic families become alcoholics, and then the next thing you know, you're like an alcoholic magnet. You know what I'm saying? You can become, it's like, fuck, you walk down the grocery store, you don't know this woman's an alcoholic, but next thing you know, you're in a relationship, and there you go, you attract another alcoholic. It's just weird how that works. But anyway, so let's we'll open it there. I'm uncloseting myself. I love Al-Anon. I don't participate as much as I used to. But I do love the Fellowship of Al-Anon. It's absolutely saved my life great many times. And we have Nadine.
Hi, Sam.
Hey.
Hi, Kathy. I'm Nadine, grateful member of Al-Anon from Victor Harbour, South Australia. I've never spoken this meeting before. I usually sit there and just listen, and it was just, I started listening and I come in late, and it was just so awesome, what you said, Kathy, stuff that I heard that I just related to. And I've got 3 adult children, and they're 2 of them I get on really well with. The youngest one, the relationship is really broken down with him at the moment. And I think a lot of it was due to me, people pleasing, trying to understand, just going along for peace, not being realistic, not being honest. Just want this delusion of happy families, has nearly driven me to the wall a lot of times. And, in the end, I just started to get real, and after quite a bit of step work, and start to be honest with him, and he wasn't happy. And he's pissed off, and started to bring up a lot of stuff that he was angry about, and that happened in the alcoholic home. And I can't fix that for him. He's going to have to do his own work and his own path, so I just kind of backed up. And, what you said, Kathy, about, waiting on God, well, that's the space I'm in at the moment. And because of lots of step work, and because of having other relationships with other family members improve by just doing the work and wait and see what happens, and it gets better. And this may never get better, but the thing is, I'm okay with it. Once I made the decision, no more of this bullshit. And I think you have to say that to your kids sometimes. I feel better, but like, I never had a clue about how to parent. My mum died when I was 13, and Dad was at the pub, and then I hooked up with this guy when I was 16. We got married, and I had 3 kids by the time I was 22. And it was not so bad when they were little. I could kind of manage that, but boy, big trouble when they got to be teenagers, And then I left the marriage, and this youngest one was living with his dad. And, it was a lot of damage done to him one way or the other. And his dad, he died of alcoholism. But this son of mine, I know he's in pain, but I can't fix it. I just got to be authentic and real. And I've been in a workshop with Mary Thayer, and that has just been the most amazing thing, each, different ways to connect to a higher power that's always been there, but I just haven't had that strong connection. And it's that underpinning all my efforts to just live a sane life, and I'm not there yet. I'm just going to be, it'll be a long time before, I'm never going to get it together. But, I came into this meeting late, and I was just so grateful. I went, wow, you know, like the thing about being understaffed, you know, like I never had any help with parenting. And my mum was understaffed, you know, she just got so depressed she sat in a chair. And, you know, this has got to stop somewhere, you know. And my daughter, she's a great parent, you know, she did the opposite to what I did, and she's turned out to be a pretty good parent. And this family disease, you know, in lots of ways it's got better in our family. But, you know, the steps and having a really good sponsor and all the things that I've been offered, they've been taking me through some, you know, pretty bloody rough spots, but I know I'm going to be okay, you know, I know. And I can't think of much else to say, but I'm just so grateful, Kathy. Thanks so much for your talk.
It's so amazing. A lot of the people that come on here, a lot of the AAs, you know, alcoholism is a family thing. And a lot of them, kids turn out to have problems with alcohol. And there's nothing that hurts worse than having your kids, you know, especially when you go through a divorce. I mean, like, I remember I was going through the second divorce, and then I had my little daughter ran out on the patio, and I'd helped her mom move into this apartment. We had not conned her, but I knew that we had kind of scammed her into saying, like, oh, you can have 2 houses now. Isn't that going to be wonderful? And she had no idea what she was doing. And I knew we had sold her a level of bullshit that when she ran out on this patio porch and screamed out, "Daddy," and I knew that I was going to be a visiting father. I knew from that moment on that she was going to be a child from a broken home. And all this time, and it was my fault because I had put together this relationship based on crap. And I mean, I looked at God and I said a prayer. I cried. I just couldn't take it. I leaned into the wall and I cried so hard. And I was like, God, this hurts so effing bad right now. Like, so bad. I got through it, and I was doing a meeting with the guys I sponsor on Sundays, but it's amazing. Nothing hurts worse than your kids when your kids are hurting, you know. I mean, nothing could affect your sobriety worse than that. And so I think this is one of the great things. The next frontier for a lot of people is, you know, raising their kids and watching a couple of your kids struggle with this. It's just been, a lot of people talk about the ups and downs. A lot of people with 30 to 40 years sobriety that come on here and have chaired this meeting and said one of the hardest things they've had to deal with is their kids struggling. You know, that's been one of the major things. So, and then I believe Kurt or Linda had their hand up. Somebody from that dojo over there. What's up, guys?
Yeah, hey, Sam.
Hey.
Kathy, thank you. Oh, I'm Linda Al-Anon. Kathy, thank you so much. So much. You were clear as a bell, and thank you, Sam, for inviting Kathy. You just said so much that I could relate to, and I think the thing that hit me the hardest when you were talking is just when you talked about the slow work of God. And it's like, it is slow work to me because it's like I wanted it all yesterday. And now, you know, where I'm sitting today, I look back and it's like, you know, I'm asking God to do work, but it's my work. And I'm so grateful that I had to do the work that I had to do because I'm such a grateful Al-Anon today. And like when I came in, you know, it was like, I was, what's a qualifier? And, you know, I realized shortly thereafter that I was my own qualifier. And because I thought that I had spent all these years trying to get this man sober. And initially, you know, I realized I was addicted to him and this wasn't healthy. And I tried everything to leave him, geographics and therapy and women who love too much groups. And finally, I realized I can't leave him, so I'll just marry him. And you know, I had kids with him because there were some dry spells there. There were some, you know, hopeful times. And I think that I thought that, you know, if only he got sober, everything would be okay. Just like we think, oh, if we get the job or if we get this. And it's not his drinking that brought me down. It was my children. My daughter, when she was about 8 years old, threw a camera at his head. And I was horrified because I felt like, you know, I too felt like I had to show this perfect, you know, this perfect, you know, persona, this of this family, and I was dying inside. And I would go out and I would think, if you only knew the pain that I'm in and that my family's in and how out of control and, you know, the permissiveness, because there just wasn't enough of me to go around. And it was just easier to just give in and say, oh my God. And then once I found this program, you know, I found the help. And I went from this victim, and here they say, there's no victims, only volunteers. And, this program just showed me the way. And it is a way of life. It's not a program. It's it's just such a beautiful, beautiful opening. And, it taught me to focus on me. And when I took the focus off of the drinking and focused on me, it's sort of like our problems died from neglect, and suddenly, a whole life evolved. And, and finally one day, I was done. And he said, please, I'll stop drinking. And I said, you know what? No. I said, you don't have to. I realized that I've wanted you to stop, and you go ahead and drink. That's your journey. And I also realized that my kids, their journey is to have an alcoholic father. He helped bring them into this world, and it wasn't my business anymore. This relationship is between, as long as they were safe, it was between him and them. And it's taught me so much. And I'm just so grateful today, to be in Al-Anon. And, what ended up happening is I left. And the day I left after 34 years, he got sober, and I moved on and found myself another alcoholic. But this time, a recovered alcoholic. So, but thank you, Kathy.
Out of the frying pan into the fire.
Shit, I'm sorry. Amanda, you have your hand up?
Hi, I'm Amanda. I'm an alcoholic. Kathy, thank you so much. I wish I would have taken notes when you were speaking, because there was so much that I related to. God, I don't even know where to start. I was also for a long time that person that just wanted everybody to believe that everything was okay, everything's good. And when I was married to my ex-husband, I was like that for years. And then I finally was talking to his mom, and I'm like, I'm not happy. Like I just couldn't do it anymore. And I told her, I'm like, I can't pretend to be happy anymore. I'm not happy. And like, this smile is not real. Like it hasn't been real for a long time. And it felt really good to get that out. We unfortunately couldn't get divorced yet because he wasn't ready to move on. But when it did happen, I finally was able to be happy for a little while. But it wasn't, I guess it wasn't real happiness until I started the program, because I didn't know how to be happy without alcohol. I'm also horrible at disciplining my kids. My oldest two are 14 and 16. My daughter's the oldest. And then I have a 3 and 5-year-old with my fiance now. And I don't know if it's because of the way I was disciplined growing up. I came from an alcoholic family, and the way that we were disciplined was not healthy at all. It wasn't okay. And I as I got older, knew that I wasn't going to do that to my kids. But then I'm like, well, what do? Like, I don't know what else to do. And then I think about like, well, they're doing things that I used to do. And like, their kids are going to do these kind of things and whatever. Self-care was never an option for me until I started the program just a few months ago. I have 15 months sober, but I've only been in the program for about 3 months. And that was really when everything started changing. I was able to do things for myself. And I've always been spiritual, but never, like, I didn't know what to do with that until I started going through the book and going through the steps with my sponsor. and getting in touch with my higher power, because I didn't know what to do with that before. But it has helped so much. And self-care is important for everybody. Whether you have kids or not, like, you have to do that for yourself. But yeah, I know there was a whole lot more that I wanted to say, because you said a lot that I was just like, oh my gosh. But thank you for all of that. That was awesome.
Thank you so much, Amanda. Liz?
Yeah, hey
Hey,
everybody, my
Liz.
name's Liz. I am an alcoholic. And
Hey,
thank you
Liz.
so much, Kathy, for your share. I heard you a long time ago, over 10 years ago, on a CD, and I don't think they make CDs anymore, but anyway, I don't have anything to play it with, but and I loved your share back then. And when I saw on the flyer that it said Kathy H, and I was like, oh, I wonder if it's that Kathy that I heard on that CD. And lo and behold, it is. And I never heard anybody talk about their parents and how, they just sent you off. And, I think the same thing about my parents. And I think, like, did they ever really give a shit after I moved out of the house? Like, I moved in with my, what turned out to be my first husband. I moved from my parents' house into his house. And, I think that they sort of just like, well, she's gone. It's all good. One of the 5 is gone now. Thank God. And, and I think, like, how, like, I live in Florida and my son lives in Denver, and how, like, if I don't hear from him, like, at least every other day or every third day, I like go, what the hell's going on? Why isn't this kid calling me? Or why isn't he answering his phone? And I'm calling him, he's 25 years old, and so I just, like, my parents did not think about like that with me, but I could really relate to you because, that first husband of mine died at 32, when I was 32, due to his alcoholism. And I never heard anybody else talk about alcoholism and their husband dying. And it took me several more years before I found these rooms. And I was pretty grateful when I finally did. So thank you for sharing. And, I married again, and that's how I have the child. And I married an alcoholic. So, that's what we do. So thanks for letting me share.
Thank you.
We have Jim. Hey, Jim.
Jim Luce, alcoholic.
Hey.
How you doing? Nice to see you, Sam. And Kathy, thank you so much. I had a very long season of life with my daughter, who I thought at one point was going to die from alcoholism, and a tsunami of pain, guilt, and shame, and really a lifting up, falling up into the loving hands of God. I know we only have a minute or two, but I just want to say that it happened when I realized suddenly that my children were lent to me by God for a short time to have experience with, to learn from. And I always thought that I had to provide all of the juice. And of course, I had no idea what I was doing. And the mother of my children had there was no commonality in our ability to raise our children at all. And today, my daughter's 32. She's got 16 years of sobriety. And, but we went to hell and back. And if it wasn't for for enlarging my God, as taught by all of you, I don't know what what the turnout would be, but having a good big God that keeps growing has helped me tremendously with inner peace and the ability to take things in stride. Thanks.
Ooh, I got my good friend Candace. I was gonna call on Candace. I'm so glad you came on.
Hey, Sam.
Hey.
Kathy, my name is Candace, and I'm such a grateful member of Al-Anon. Kathy, fabulous to hear you tonight. You know, when you were talking about Al-Anon is rooted in letting go, and I just have to add with love. That took so long for me to learn how to do that, letting go with love. My sisters were part of the reasons I came into Al-Anon, my dad, my sisters, my family, but I was sure that they would be dead within a year. Well, it took them, I had to be an the slow work of God. I was an Al-Anon for 22 years before one of them got sober. She's now got 25 years of sobriety, but 22 years of waiting for her to get sober. I thought I was going to die. I mean, these were my little sisters that I raised. So, and the next one got sober, you know, a year later, but it's God's work, not ours. And thank you so much. And this was fabulous.
I, I feel like I'd be doing us a disservice. That's great, Candace. Thank you so much. So good to see you. I feel like I'd be doing a disservice. You know, one of the unsung producers of this meeting and my sponsor, Tom, is always helping me get a great list of suggestions. And this was one of those ones. Every now and then he sends me a list of people and he forgets that he tells me that those particular people, and it's like, did you get such and such yet? And I'm like, he's like, oh yeah, you got that person. But some people he'll just let go. He wouldn't let go of Kathy. He said, did you get that Kathy Hegan lady? When are you going to get Kathy? Have you talked to Kathy? Did you follow up with her? He usually doesn't follow up with me of whether or not I followed up with somebody. But he goes, hey, you ought to follow up with Kathy. Did you follow? What happened with her? I said, oh, she can't speak for a month or two, blah, blah. He goes, did you follow up with her? I'm like, no, I didn't. So I'm going to open. I just want somebody from either Tom or Juana. One of you guys share with us for a second?
Hi, Tom just passed the baton on to me. I think it's because I'm the Al-Anon. So there you go. Kathy, that was fantastic. It really was.
Oh, thanks,
you
Juanita.
so much. I really just
Thank you.
You know, you said so much. I mean, you absolutely said so much, and it's definitely a talk that I'm gonna go back and listen to again, because there really was a lot from your heart. You know, I love that thing about the flippers. You know, Tom and I had we're just in Mexico, and we love snorkeling, and so we got the snorkels that the water doesn't go in if it gets submerged, right? And we're like, well, do we get flippers? We, you know, and we go, yeah, let's take our flippers. So I got the short flippers. You know, I didn't know, but there's short flippers. And then he got these like majorly long flippers, you know? And so he needs a lot of help, you know? So he really needs the long flippers. But I just love that. And you said so much, you know, the listening. Boy, I always thought that I was a good listener. I'm a terrible listener. I'm horrible. And I'm worse on Zoom, because I find myself wanting to multitask, to do other things. And it takes so much prayer to show up and be present and listen and to give people the time and my attention that they deserve, you know? And so that is, I really appreciate that. I'm going to briefly tell a quick story, because I know you have to end, Sam. You know, we have this guy who I've known since I was in high school here in Santa Fe. And he's been working with Tom doing construction for years, and now he's not doing much construction. Neither Tom or this guy are doing much construction, but he comes and takes care of our house and helps do things. And this morning, and I can be so dismissive, you know, I can just be, that doesn't mean I treat him badly or treat people badly, but I can be dismissive. And this morning I went out and I was going to get in my car to go to town, and he was watering my flowers. and we'd had a lot of rain, and I said, oh, I said, I wasn't gonna water my flowers. And he goes, oh, I'm sorry, I was helping. I thought I was helping. And I said, oh, you are helping. I really appreciate it. But I think I've been watering them just too much. I think they're getting too much water. And he goes, oh, drowning them. And I said, yeah. I said, I think so, you know? And he says, well, I'm gonna water these because they look like they're brand new. I said, yeah, thank you, appreciate that. And then I came in the house, got my stuff, and I was getting in the car, and I saw him, you know, and I stopped a moment, and I stopped for a moment, and I looked right at him, and I said, I just want to tell you how grateful I am for all your help. I really appreciate you. I really appreciate you. Here's the kicker about it. I felt it.
Mm-hmm.
I felt it,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And how many times do I mean, talk about emotional sobriety, to be at a place where I can feel that, even desire to feel that. I can only do that because of God, you know, this slow working God. And is God really slow working, Kathy? Is he really slow working? Or am I just not teachable? Am I the one who's just not reachable? I loved your talk. Thank you so much. Love you,
Thank
dear.
you.
Bless.
Thanks both of you. Thank you. Thank you both, of course. Thanks.
I was talking. I'm sorry. I said, Kathy, do you have anything else? I was on mute. I'm so I did that twice already.
I thought you'd fallen asleep.
No, you are such a pro through that whole, such a pro, man. I mean, Corey goes to timeout for ending the meeting as the switching the chair thing, and you picked up right after that, just boom. And I'm just giving Corey grief. He's a great dude. Anyway, obviously accident. And the next thing is, is there anything that you have thought about that while anybody's sharing, anything else you want to add that maybe you didn't, that came to you while any of that? It's okay if not.
Well, you know, the only thing that I'm feeling a little like I need to explain a little bit. My parents were really lovely, lovely people. It's just that they never, and believe me, they knew I was in trouble for years, but they never interfered. They never weighed in. I just knew that they were there. And my mother, who just died 9 days short of 102 years of age, she really taught me what it means to be a compassionate listener, to listen, to be present, but without giving unsolicited advice, weighing in, opinion, and all that stuff. So, anyhow, I just did want to say that. But no, I also thank you for the opportunity. And thank you, everybody, you know, for your sharing as well. It's really just such a miraculous program, isn't it? After all is said and done, it just really is. So thank you.
Thank you for a beautiful meeting. I know everybody really appreciated it. And then the way that we close this, instead of having like a schizophrenic unified, you know, Zoom prayer, we just mute ourselves and go to our inner room and say the Lord's Prayer to ourselves. And then,
Sounds good.
Yeah, meet you back. Thank you, everyone, for a great meeting.
Thank you,
Sam.
Kathy.
Thanks,
Thank you so
Thanks,
much.
Kathy.
Thanks, Sam.
Thank you. God bless you.
Thank you. Thanks, Sam.
Thanks,
Thanks,
Sam.
Corey. Thanks.
Thank you, Sam.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kathy, again.
Thanks, Kathy.
Thank you.
Thank you, Kathy. That was so wonderful.
Thank you. Good to be with everybody.
Yeah, we'll have in our Dropbox a recording A and then B, thanks to Corey.
You're so welcome.
Yeah.
It's more fun that way, honestly.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Well, thank you so much. And much love, everybody. Thank you.
See ya. Bye.
Guys, bye, Tom. Bye, Juanita.
Bye, you guys.
Good to see you, Sam.
Good to see you
Tom. Hi,
guys.
Juanita.
Hi, hey, guys. Love you. Take care.